All right. So, 6 weeks done in college football, and that doesn't even feel real to say, and especially the week we just had. I mean, you look around the nation at the big college football games, guys, we are absolutely spoiled right now with the quality of college football we are able to watch. This evening, I'm joined by Preston Gant of the PG Show, Jay Smith of Unfair Sports. Nino's Sports Corner will be dropping in here shortly to talk to us about the Red River Rivalry, so it is going to be a great show. Guys, before we get into this, as always, y'all know what to do. Let the people know where they can find you. PG, I'll start with you and then go to Jay.
Yeah. So y'all can find me on YouTube, Apple, Google, or Spotify podcasts. Just the PG Show, all one word. You guys can find me the PG Show _ on Twitter. We put out lots of great content, lots of player interviews. Working on getting a couple more, so come hop in.
Always a great time.
Always a great time. Yeah, and Jay Smith with Unfair Sports. You definitely can find us wherever podcasts are downloaded and listen to for the sports stuff, as well as Sooner content. You can find us. Just search us on YouTube. Unfair Sports. Ty, excited to talk about some games.
Man, oh man, I can't wait. And there's so many to choose from. But as we wait for Nino, I think the best place for us to start is what was before this weekend maybe the most anticipated game of the college football season, Alabama versus Texas A&M. And guys, when you look around college football media right now, Twitter, Facebook, what have you, you're inundated with two thought processes. First and foremost, that this was bad Alabama. Secondly, that this was good A&M. Now, before I get into all of this, kind of a preview, my father, when I was growing up, used to tell me when you have two sides of the same story, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. And I think in some instances, that's what we can say here. If you're asking me my take on the Alabama game this weekend, here's the thing. Alabama did everything they could to try and make the game as hard on themselves as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Untimely turnovers, possessions where there were opportunities that were not taken advantage of. I mean, it was just almost unbelievable. It was almost a repeat of that Texas game, where in the Texas game, you had penalties. In this game, you had just mistakes that didn't maybe look like penalties, but they showed themselves through turnovers, through missed opportunities. We saw Jalen Milroe able to get the offense rolling, but every time consistency would start happening, every time momentum would start going in Alabama's way, there'd be a hiccup. Now, I think that's indicative of a young quarterback, especially a quarterback trying to run a system that might not be tailored to him. But at the end of the day, Alabama was able to get out of here because that defense, guys, that defense is stellar for Alabama. I mean, that defense is incredible. Whenever I look at this and I answer the question, was it good A&M or bad Alabama? It was bad Alabama in the sense that Alabama gave them all the opportunities to get those points. Texas A&M didn't go get those points on their own accord. Alabama had turnovers. The flip side to that is that A&M got those turnovers, right? It's not like Jalen Milroe was running and nobody touched him and he fumbled the football. A&M got the football. They hit it out of his hands. So they earned those turnovers. Right. And then for an offense that has had no identity, with Anaya Smith out, with Max Johnson out, they were able to capitalize on the opportunities when they presented themselves. And in that mindset, if you're an A&M fan, seeing an offense that has had no identity week after week, playing against this defense, capitalizing on opportunities is about as good of a thing as you could have asked for from your team. Guys, I'm going to turn it over to y'all. I want to hear your reactions. Jay, I want to start with you. What was your thoughts?
Let me come off mute instead of start talking without it. No, I got a chance to sit down and actually watch this Alabama Texas A&M game, especially after I was out of town this weekend. I spent the weekend at LSU, which is an LSU Tennessee game. As you can see, I have the checkerboard shirt on, and it was a blast, of course, there. And it was fascinating how it felt like everything Bama was doing in that game, like you said, was the hardest way possible. Like, Milroe should have been able to get a lot more loose. Some of the play calling should have been more geared to him moving around and chunking it, but it felt like it was all pro style. And we talked about this, Ty, in our group chat. I don't understand what Bill O'Brien's doing to make life just hard for you all. And I think the other thing that's fascinating is how Texas A&M always steps up for this game. Them, and I guess it's the Texas thing, where they like to play up to their competition and down in their competition, just
Yeah.
one or the other, because they played like a team that, I mean, Haynes King, I mean, he wasn't great, but he looked like he was capable. But he hadn't been looking capable most of this season.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't understand how
Against
does
a good
Jimbo Fisher
defense.
do it? Yeah. I'm guessing that's exactly what it is. But that Alabama defense is stellar. Like, you all have some studs throughout all of it. The secondary has its quirks, but at the same time, the secondary still looked good, like really good, to me in this game. And so I think that it just needs some additional work just to tweak things. But I'm just baffled at how A&M just looks like a completely new team when it comes to Alabama. I think that's just crazy to me.
Yeah, and I think Brock makes a great point here. Alabama, it's not simply relegated to Alabama, but there are a few teams in college football where you're going to get your opposition's best because it is that big of a deal. And in the case of this weekend, you're talking about a lot, right? You're talking about the past several years, Alabama owning what has been a historic rivalry. So there's a lot on the line for this team. PG, talk to me. What was your takeaways from Texas A&M versus Alabama this weekend?
Yeah, well, let's look at the elephant in the room. Guys, there are 34 y'all on here. There's only 5 likes on the stream. Go ahead and give it a like real quick, because that's some great content here. It helps them get it out to other people. But all right, anyways, what I thought about the game. So I really didn't expect Haynes King to have the day that he had against Alabama. And I'm not sure if that was the Alabama defense just not preparing for him well, but seeing Haynes King kind of run a little bit and have a little bit of success where he hasn't had success all season, it kind of concerned me a little bit, because I guess we can say Alabama had a bad day, but if we're going to say that, then they've had 2 bad days in their 6 games that they played, because they were a 1-point win against Texas, and in a game a lot of people say Texas probably would have won with Quinn Ewers. So ultimately Alabama beat themselves up with penalties, 6 penalties, 73 yards, and they just couldn't get, they couldn't stay on the field when they hit the 3rd down. They were 5 of 14 from the 3rd down efficiency. That's not something that we're typically used to seeing from Alabama. I would expect Alabama to go in there and clean a lot of this up, but I thought they would have cleaned a lot of it up after the Texas weekend, especially with the 4 turnovers. So we'll see what Nick Saban and Bill O'Brien are going to bring out next week when they go to play Tennessee, because going to Knoxville, where I don't know if the time has been announced yet, but I would expect it to be a night game.
It's 2:30. It's 2:30. They've already announced it. It's awful.
Yeah, so
that should be the night game.
Yeah, that should be a night game. But
it's awful.
Yeah, regardless, that's going to be really tough. I mean, that's going to be a really tough game to play for Alabama. That might be one of their toughest games of this season, because when I look at the schedule outside of that, you really just got Ole Miss, LSU, Auburn, and Mississippi State. So this Tennessee game might be the headliner game for Alabama, and if they can come out of that with the win and look good, maybe I can jump back on the Tide wagon to win the national championship this year. But right now, I've got to kind of hop off that wagon and go jump on Ohio State.
Yeah, I don't think that that's an unfair assessment. Ohio State looked really good, and I will say I think a lot of Alabama's struggles come on the back of having a backup quarterback in and then having the game plan not go at all according to plan. But I can't sit here and tell you that Ohio State hasn't looked fantastic all season. They've looked very good. Nino, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Before I get to you, before we start hearing from you about this game, where can everybody find your content?
Hey, folks, go to Nino's Corner on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere. Nino's Corner. Go there. And then also, folks, go to www.ninoscornersports.com. And this is where I break down all my Texas stats.
Yeah, man, I can't. I mean, I've told you, but for the people out there, I reference countless videos Nino has made to this day. Great content. But what was your thoughts on watching Alabama take on Texas A&M this weekend? What was your takeaways?
Man, I only got to watch just like the last 5 minutes of the game. I was at the Cotton Bowl up until around 7:30, 8 o'clock. Had to drive, had to do a podcast. So, look, I saw just the last piece of it. But one thing I will say is, like just seeing all the stats and stuff, man. Just having 2 fumbles by Milroe, right? I mean, that's killer. But for them to actually pull out the win with him fumbling the ball twice and also throwing a pick, look, Bama has a strong defense. Bama has a strong team. That team's going to be fine as long as Bryce Young comes back. It is what it is. It's the same thing that I like to say about Quinn, right? I think if Texas has Quinn this whole season, they're 4-1 at a minimum. Well, I'm sorry, 5-1 at a minimum, right? At a minimum, possibly 6-0. If Bama has Bryce Young, hey, they're going to be right there. Playoffs, it is what it is.
Yeah, and look, I largely agree. And Hummus says in the comments, he makes a good point. The best team Ohio State has seen is Notre Dame. Let's hold off on making them the favorites. And this is from a Buckeye fan. Hummus, I do hear you, but I certainly wouldn't be mad at anybody for putting Ohio State #1 right now because they have played good football. Jance, look, another Alabama guy in here. Hey, I need someone to help me out here, man. We go into this game, and it at times it almost looked like the offensive game plan, was the same exact one for Bryce Young. Now, look, I like Jalen Milroe a lot. I think he's incredibly gifted. I think you talk to the people that know him, that have trained with him, they all have glowing reviews. But he's not Bryce Young. Look, guys, let's be very honest. As far as throwing the football, there is a handful of quarterbacks over the past few years in college football that can do it at the level Bryce Young can do it. I mean, it is very, very few. Asking him to be Bryce Young was just setting up failure, in my opinion. Jance, talk to me. What were you seeing? Am I crazy? What's going on here? And guys, I didn't know if he'd be making it on this evening. He knows exactly because he's sitting there smiling right now. I didn't know he'd make it on, but the man, the myth, the legend is here. Chris Griffin of the Horns Down podcast. We have an absolute full house this evening. Now, Chris, before I let you go, I got to hear from Jance. I'll give you some time to sit in silence and think. Jance, talk to me. What were you thinking about Alabama?
Oh, Bill O'Brien needs to be fired immediately.
Exactly.
This just exposed how inept and stubborn an offensive coordinator like Bill O'Brien is. And I had to go back and watch some of the old offensive coordinators like Steve Sarkisian. I had to watch Lane Kiffin. And it's just amazing to me how they can deal with the likes of Blake Sims, of Jacob Coker, of Blake Barnett, especially in that 2016 game, the USC game, where literally Lane Kiffin had 2 packages. He had two packages ready to go just in case if something happened with Blake Barnett. Jalen Hurts can come in and he can have his own thing. We've seen with Blake Sims how Lane Kiffin can utilize what he can do with the raw quarterback and pretty much utilize the strengths of his of his assets and just really play to the best of his ability. I mean, I look at this offensive coordinator with Bill O'Brien. I mean, again, we're running the same offense with Jalen Milroe. The only difference is that we just added some zone reads. Again, where was the innovation? Where was the creativity? No running back screens, no RPOs, no sweeps, nothing. Just the same plain old offense all over again. Everyone running their go routes, their inside posts. It's the same crap we see over and over and over again with when it comes to Bryce Young. The only difference is that Jalen Milroe can't operate the offense like Bryce Young can. He can't go up the line of scrimmage and make adjustments on the fly. That's not Jalen Milroe's game. And you saw what happened. Jalen panicked. He didn't know what to do. He tried to do too much. He was carrying the ball loosely. Pretty much every series he carried the ball loosely whenever he tried to scramble. And Texas A&M, all they had to do was squeeze in the pocket, contain him in the inside, and Jalen had no clue what to do. He panicked. And again, he had a horrible game, but we also saw how raw when it came to mechanics. We again could not throw the football down the field. I mean, that was just again. I'm not going to ragdoll on Jalen Milroe that much. I already did that as much as I could. Maybe I should never did that because I should be mad at Bill O'Brien because this is his fault. That's his fault for not again implementing the packages that can help out Jalen Milroe's game. That's his fault.
Yes.
But I mean, Ty, I mean, are we surprised? Are we truly surprised, Bama fans, to see that offense perform that bad? I saw nothing. I saw no adjustments being made. I saw an offensive coordinator that again, that was just again he's stubborn. The same crap we saw at Penn State, the same crap we saw at the New England Patriots when he's arguing back and forth with Tom Brady every single week. The same crap we saw at the Houston Texans, and the same complaints from these fans. Talking to a couple of Texans fans themselves, they say, "Yeah, that was the biggest complaint when he was working with Deshaun Watson and some of those other quarterbacks was the same crap that you're dealing with right now." It is what it is at this point, and unfortunately, we're gonna have to deal with this all season. I'm gonna call it right here, guys. We go into next week with Jalen Murrow as our starting quarterback. We're losing.
Hey, well, I'll trade you Bevel for Milrow.
No, you don't. No, you don't. I can promise you that right there. Jalen Murrow's confidence. I mean, I saw in that game his confidence was shot. It's just a shame because this could have been a game that could have been a confidence booster right for him going into next week. But it's like if you're panicking at home, imagine going on the road in front of 100,000 fans against a crowd that hasn't beat us, a team that hasn't beat us since 2006.
But here's where I'm going to push back on you, man. Here's where I'll push back. And I'm going to push back on Crimson, too, because he says, who they going to hire if they fire Bill O'Brien?
I already know
Crimson,
the answer to that.
There's Garrett Riley. There's an infinite number of answers I can provide to you.
Scott Frost,
yeah.
Infinite number of directions I can point you. So
Herman.
That's a non-issue. Here's the deal. And Crimson says Bob had nothing to do with him fumbling the ball. It is a coach's job, much like it is a teacher's job, to put their students or athletes in the best place to succeed. If you're a teacher and you know at the end of the year there's going to be a massive writing test, but you don't teach your student how to write, and then you're upset at the end of the year when they don't know how to do this test, that's on you. That is 150,000% on you. We came into this game with the same game plan for Jalen Milrow that we had for Bryce Young. So, guys, I hear you. It does sound like
look
whining.
at the receiving design. Look at the design routes by these receivers.
But there is a method to our madness. Yeah, we're not whining for nothing. Jay, I want to hear from you, and then Nino.
Yeah, because Ty, we talked about this in the group chat. Like, I understand what Bill O'Brien is doing. Setting up, having that pro-style offense helps with preparing for the NFL. It does. We saw that with Lamar Jackson at Louisville with Bobby Petrino. That's what makes Lamar Jackson actually a really good passer right now, is he ran that pro-style offense. You have to be able to pass to do it. You have to be able to make adjustments, etc., so on. But when you have a guy that you know is not ready for it, like Bryce Young was prepared for that. When you have a guy that's not prepared for it, you got to adjust. And that's the thing. You're not leveraging the strengths of Milrow right now. Down the road, he can be prepared for that in like a pro-style setup. But yeah, you're not making it easy for him whatsoever.
Sark. This is why I miss Steve Sarkisian, man. This is why I miss him so much, because I know Sark would have been ready. Sark would have been prepared for
Sark's creative. He's always been that good when it comes to creativity and leveraging the talent he has in front of him.
Nino, before I let you go, I want to answer this right here, because Kirby, you at some level you are right. You are right? Because at some point it is on the student to be accountable as well. And look, I'm not saying Jalen Milrow is absolved from any sort of criticism from this game. There were opportunities that he could have taken advantage of that he didn't. I argue, though, that a lot of that falls back on, once again, a teacher didn't put his student in a place to succeed. That's on the teacher, right? We see the same offense struggling with Bryce Young. Bryce Young, the Heisman Trophy winner, the dude that pulls magic out the hat at will. That's where we're talking about this right here. Nino, go ahead, Chris. Chris, you haven't gone at all. So
I just wanted to jump in and just say, okay, so we're putting a lot of the onus on. We're saying a lot of the problems lie within Bill O'Brien and then a little bit on Jake Milrow. I think we need to kind of take a step back and just realize that, out of all the games that he can scheme well for, Jimbo and company scheme really well against you guys. I don't know what it is, but they always find a way to play up against you guys.
Chris, if Jalen Murrow would have never turned over those two balls, I can guarantee you we would have blew that team out. Because when you really took a look at the game, offensively, the offensive line took another massive step. Seth McLaughlin and Tyler Booker were once again key factors into why our offensive line were able to establish 260 yards rushing. And then the defense, for the most part, with the exception of those turnovers, every single time where the defense started off with good field position, so regularly at the 25 to the 30, they only allowed 6 points. They only allowed 6 points. The rest of the points came after Jalen Murrow's turnovers, which set them up inside the 49-yard line.
Yeah.
The defense did their job. It's up to the offense now, and it's up to Bill O'Brien. It's up to Jalen Murrow to now execute. And at least I can take a sack. I can even take those 30, I mean, a 30, 40-yard interception that Jalen Murrow threw. I'll take that as a punt. But don't put the defense in a situation like we had to do, where all of a sudden they just got off the football field. Now they have to come back in, and they're working with even worse field position than what they were working with the previous drive.
And I get that, Jens, but my whole point is this right here, okay? To be honest with you, I can't really talk right now because how my team is looking. But when you look at Texas A&M from an outside perspective, the bright spot of that team has been their defense. To be honest with you, so. Their defense, I mean, like Kirby Visor said, credit to them for forcing turnovers, credit to them for just being in the right and making the right play, right? Or benefiting from the lack of the right play. But I would just say, I mean, I think that I had to disagree with you and push back a little bit. I don't think this really hurt his confidence. That's a decent defensive team that you're going against as your first career start. I don't know if you guys are on the road or if you're at home against Tennessee.
We're on the road.
Yeah. Now that
against the team we haven't beat, they haven't beaten us in 17 years.
That's a bit different. But at the same time, that Tennessee defense has lapses as well. I mean, you could go back to the Florida game and see some of the like, how or why are y'all giving that up? So,
but they also stop the run. That's their biggest strength on their defense, is stopping the run.
Yeah, I mean. Look, at the end of the day, they're going to have to do all of that. But as far as just focusing on this game, like I said, I'm still high on Jaden Milroe. I think you guys are going to be in great hands next year. And I think that you're going to have a solid backup as well in Simpson if he doesn't just take the job outright anyways. But at the same time, like I said, out of all the games that he could scheme well for, that he and company can scheme well for, Jimbo definitely always has his guys ready to play against you guys for some reason. At least these past 2 years he has.
I want to let Nino go, but before I do that, Brandon, thank you for the $5. He says, y'all go back and look at the coaches, Phil. The players were there. Jalen was waiting for the routes to open instead of throwing to the spot. But you're not wrong, Brandon, but I think that goes back to my point. You're then asking him to make anticipatory throws, and that might not be the strength of his games. That's where RPOs come into. We're then playing into what Bryce Young does, and a great teacher formulates a plan for that student as opposed to making every student fit the same plan. Nino.
Yeah, so, just hearing just the whole conversation now, it's, so when Jalen actually played, this reminds me so much of Hudson Card when he came in at Texas, right? So when Quinn goes out, Sark plays the exact same offensive scheme that he would play for Quinn. Now, we know Hudson is a much better runner, and he uses his wheels to do some great things, but we never utilized that, so we wanted him to pass out of the pocket, scramble to make a play down the field. And I get it, because Sark wanted to keep him healthy, you're right? Because if he's not healthy, then there's nobody behind him really. Honestly, I'm not a big Bill O'Brien fan. I don't think anybody is, right? But he has been one of those guys that has gotten so lucky with having transcendent quarterback play. And I say this all the time. You can have a horrible offensive line, you can have an horrible OC, but when you have a Bryce Young, right? He is the eraser for a lot of your problems. Even when he was with the Texans, he made the playoffs a few times on the back of Watson, right? When you have a transcendent player at the quarterback position, that is the master eraser of all deficiencies for your offense. And Milroe's going to be a very good player. He's going to be a very good player, but he's not Bryce Young. It is what it is. He is not Bryce Young. For that game right there, I think that Bill O'Brien should have had more plays where you utilize just the running ability of Jalen. I mean, that's one of his core strengths, is push the ball down the field with his legs, let him do his thing. But you can't roll out the same offense as Bryce, because he's not Bryce. And like I said before, and hey, Chris was shaking his head because we talk about this all the time. Transcendent quarterback play erases a lot of deficiencies. And Bryce Young is a transcendent quarterback who is going to be a top 5 pick in this draft this year. He was the number 1 player in his class when he came out, and it's a reason for that.
It's a lot of it was a lot of throws over the middle. It was a lot of throws over the middle that I was just thinking to myself, I was like, I don't know what this play calling is. And maybe it's not the play calling, maybe it's just him trying to read way too much into the play instead of making a simple play, you know. My whole thing was like, man, you got to get him in a rhythm. I felt like from the jump, you never really saw him get into a rhythm. You just saw him go out there and say, let it rip, right? So, I mean, I get that me and Nino are kind of on the same page. I was about to say the same thing. You design runs. You got to have some design runs sprinkled in there, couple of screens, different things like that to get him and the receivers comfortable as well, because Jets, Ty, you guys have alluded to it. Sometimes your wide receiver play, as talented as they are, that could be a bit lackadaisical when it comes to their approach to the game or the preparation for the game, as far as jogging routes, doing different things like that. You guys have pointed it out. So why not get the juices flowing and get them going? But at the same time, I mean, it's an ugly win. I think you guys were probably expecting to win by 40 or so, which you probably should have. You probably should have. But at the same time, I mean, hey, I mean that's just how it goes. Like I said, they just schemed really well for you guys, and things went their way.
Yeah, it's just for me. When you're dealing with a flawed quarterback like Jalen Murrow, and you're stubborn enough to still rock one of the most complex offenses in college football, that tells me all I need to know about Bill O'Brien. I mean, Jalen Murrow, this is how bad his mechanics are. He is jumping in the air, and he did this not once. He did this not twice. He did it 3 times in the game where Jahmyr Gibbs or Jace McClellan was in the flat, and he had to jump in the air because he wasn't confident enough of stepping into the throw and simply just delivering it to the flat. He had to jump in the air to deliver that throw. I mean, it's just if we can't do anything against Texas, if we can't do anything against this game against Texas A&M, and granted, they're very, very talented, but we all know that if Bryce Young would have played in this game, Alabama would have hung up 50 points. The game, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. The game would have been over by the time we got to the fourth quarter. It's like the offensive line played phenomenal. Every time Jalen Murrow got sacked, the protection was there. He had a lot of time, probably with the exception of maybe one, but that's just about it. And then the defense, I mean, we played overly aggressive. We played extremely aggressive. Will Anderson had 8 quarterback hurries. Yeah. Justin Agbobi played phenomenally. Jaheim Otis played phenomenally. Dallas Turner finally got on the ball. He had a couple sacks. Braswell, our rotation player, had a sack. Kool-Aid, once again, was another shutdown corner. We had our safety play wasn't the best, and Terry and Arnold got tested a little bit.
But Arnold got tested by who I believe is a star. And in fairness, I said this when he was in high school.
Absolutely. If you take away the quarterback play and the play call and the play calling from Bill O'Brien in special teams, those 3 things, no. Will Reichert, that's it. Those were the 3 biggest deficiencies, and that is what almost cost us the game. Everything else went pretty smooth. It was great. So
speaking of things going smooth, because we could sit here and go talking about this game for hours, Jans. You and I, we could rant about this for hours, but there's a pressing issue at hand that we have to get to, and we're halfway in already. And we gotta
watch your words. Watch your words.
Scurry on away.
So this weekend there was a football game, right? I don't know if y'all saw it. And
the Kansas TCU game? That was a great game.
Man, that was good too. That was a good game.
Give me Beaver as the backup quarterback.
That one was competitive. That was a competitive game.
The Kansas is such a fun team in college football right now, but there's a few teams like that. UCLA, Washington, Kansas, Florida State. I mean, they've just been so much fun to watch, but don't get me elsewhere. I see what you're doing, PG. Don't get me elsewhere. I'm like a squirrel. No, not today. I see through all of this. I wade through it. The Red River blowout occurred this weekend. Now, guys, Oklahoma came into this game having dropped the previous 2. And this weekend, whenever it was announced that Dylan Gabriel wasn't going to be playing, I think a lot of people probably knew you had a real tough to next to impossible task in front of you. Oklahoma's offense was inconsistent, even with Dylan Gabriel in there, and the defense hasn't been able to establish the identity you would like. So at the point when DG's not there, you have a lot of questions. And across from you, you have a Texas team that's really starting to surge at the right time. Guys, I think it's only right. Nino, you guys got the win, right? You guys got the big win. So I got to let Chris, PG, and Jay go first to talk because they got to get a lot off their chest. Chris.
No.
Chris, you've said a lot, man. No. You've said a lot, man. You've said a lot. I want to hear from you.
No.
I'll go last.
Yeah. Let PG go first.
Are you sure? I think everybody wants to hear from the man of the hour.
Oh,
I think everybody's asking for Chris in the chat. The chat looks like it's about Chris.
Look. Yeah, first off, okay. Let's just say this right here. Inconsistent is not the way to describe what we saw on Saturday offensively. That was
not Saturday.
That was pure hot garbage. That just, I mean, I don't know any other way to describe it. You come out with Bevel, and I hate to just bag on somebody, but I mean, Jesus Christ, what was that? Like, at some point, it's not let's raise the white flag. Like, let's actually go through our depth chart and see if we can't get anybody else in there. When you're running a Wildcat, hell, we might as well went out there and just ran the wishbone the entire game.
I was trying to figure out why we didn't.
Yeah, and then on 4th and 1, you're sitting there going back to your regular formations. You're not getting any push off of that. You're getting push off the Wildcat plays with Brady Willis. You're getting push off the Wildcat plays, even with Eric Gray back there. But you go back to your regular formation and let them stuff you. Then for some odd reason, on the 30-yard line, going in to yet again another red zone entry, you throw a jump pass on. I mean, at some point it just got out of hand and it just got away. Play calling, literally, I don't know what we were doing on either side of the ball. That was the first time this year. Now I know that we have not been good these past 3 games, but that was the first time this year that I could actually say our linebackers were not physical. I saw them get bullied by running backs, by Roshan Johnson, of all people, who always gets hurt, in my opinion.
Roshan doesn't always get hurt. And if you go look at
Roshan,
okay, I'll let you talk.
Both of your backs, they get hurt. They've been hurt. It's on record. But my whole thing is just right here. I saw them bully our linebackers, get in that second level and do whatever they want. You're sitting there. I mean, Texas was not forced to run anything spectacular or do anything out of the ordinary. It was really just base offense. And with Bowman out, with DG out, our secondary was tore to shreds. Quarterback play. It just, I mean, I really don't know at this point what to say. It can only get better, I would hope.
You got Kansas next.
You said what?
You got Kansas next, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a home game. I feel
and we're
good
9.5 point favorites.
Yeah.
Well, y'all are 9.5 point favorites right now over Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know what Vegas.
Daniels might not play.
No, he's not going to play. He's a separate AC.
That's right.
He has a grade 3 separation, which is a full separation.
Oh, geez,
yeah, that's right.
But the backup, what's his name? Is it Bean?
Yeah, Bean shredded us last year.
He was the one who gave us problems last year.
Right.
Yeah.
He ain't bad.
Quarterback.
And I'll explain that in a minute, though, what's going on with that portion. But PG, I'll let you and Chris finish up.
As terrible, and I'll let PG go after this. Look, I sat up there with a lot of fans around me, and they were like, "Yeah, man, you know what? Defensively, they didn't come out bad."
Wait, you
stops
on the first drive?
Yeah.
On the first drive, the rest of the game they were hot garbage.
3 drives.
First couple of drives weren't too
that
bad.
14-0, okay, we got some other stops. We're like, okay, defensively, you haven't played that bad coming out the gates.
I think we scored in the second drive.
You can't help the defense out.
I don't think you can say that the second drive was a successful drive, and I think we went down and scored like 13 plays, if I'm not mistaken.
And if I may, here's one thing, Chris, I have to wonder.
Yeah.
And you're right. The offense didn't help the defense out. I thought they weren't passing because the offense was so scared of what would happen if they left the defense on the field. Like I told you, in 2 games, Oklahoma had given up more yards than any defense on the top 10 defense all season. I thought at first, now eventually it came to realize they just didn't know what to do. Yeah. I thought that they were running the Wildcat to extend drives so that they could nullify Texas's offense because they didn't have an answer for how to stop it.
I
That's
did
what
too.
it looked like for me.
No, I did too. I mean, I was like, I said that coming in. Nick, you know, I said that this may be a game where Levy actually focuses on the time of possession rather than trying to speed things up, and because you're going to have to, especially if you don't have Gabriel back there. And that's what
you know how I feel about Levy. I've been saying this for over a year about your boy Levy.
Well, this I'm gonna push back on you, Nino. If you get into schematics, Levy's not the issue. Oklahoma's offense came into this ranked as a top 20 offense, actually ranked higher than the Texas Longhorn offense. Now I get it. Hudson Card wasn't there.
But
well, once again, I don't think either team outside of Texas is playing Alabama was indicative of massive defensive opponents in front of you, yet the numbers were still what they were, right? Even outside of that one game isolation, the numbers were still saying the same thing. And even when we look, Jeff Levy's been consistently offensively successful. So the numbers point to him being decent. I just think that whenever you don't have your starting quarterback and your defense is not able to stop anybody, it's a recipe for disaster.
We still were able to move the ball. I mean, it's not like OU was not able to move the ball in a Wildcat. We exploited something, like especially that the edges. We exploited that real good, but we just could not score. Well, I mean, we couldn't get it done. At the end of the day, it was a terrible game. Terrible performance on all phases, all three phases. All two phases of the game because Turk was really good. Outside of that, I mean, there's nothing else to really say. I mean, I hate to do this, but I mean, I wouldn't say the more talented team won, but the better team won that day.
No, the more talented team won. Texas is always more talented than Oklahoma. It's just Oklahoma has better development.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Well, I can say Texas has more talent at the skill positions than Oklahoma. Oklahoma is always more talented in the trenches where it matters.
True.
Yeah,
very true.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
They win the line game every time. You're right. Yeah.
But
that's fair. Very
fair. Starting to flip now. That's starting to flip now. We're seeing how we had two freshmen in that game straight dominate that game. Kelvin Banks Jr. was a freaking monster that game.
He was.
I mean, there were plays where he was pushing the linebacker back, then hitting, like a DB, knocking him back, whistle blows, and he's still going, yapping and pushing folks around. That's something we haven't seen at Texas on the offensive line since the days of Casey Studdard, Tony Hill, Jay Scott. Yeah, man. I mean, that we haven't seen that kind of nastiness in a long time.
Yeah, and that's good for Texas. Which I'm going to be honest, I was wrong about Texas. I thought their offensive line this year would be pretty bad, putting true freshmen out there, but they look pretty good. And now you see why Arch is wanting to come there next year, because he's going to have a talented offensive line to play behind, probably the best offensive line in all of college football next year. So,
and the crazy thing about that too, man, is you would think with a young line like that their best thing would be run blocking. It's not. Honestly, they are like a middle tier, line once it comes to like actually run blocking. Pass blocking is where they're flourishing. And that's what's crazy about it is these guys are ranked for each position in the Big 12 in the top 2 or 3, I think, per position, just in pass blocking alone. And that's why we're seeing Quinn has so much time back there, and he's able to slice and dice so much because that line is no kidding, keeping him clean passing. Now, when it comes to running the ball, thank God we got a guy like Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson, because Bijan has the most, tackles broken this year because he's constantly getting hit in the backfield, and he's being Bijan, making wonderful plays and being slithery and being the best running back in the nation. So without Bijan, I don't think our running game is actually the game that I would like it to actually be. But the passing, hey, man, the pass blocking from that Kelvin Banks Jr., Cole Hudson, Hayden Connor, even Jake Majors now, yeah. Christian Jones has made the biggest step moving from left tackle to right tackle. Mm-hmm. Our line has just been outstanding just in pass coverage.
I mean, y'all live in a 12 personnel. Y'all are max protecting an awful lot as well. So I mean, that's something else. Wink, wink. That you guys.
Not really, Chris. Hold on, Chris. I got the stats. I do the metrics. I do the metrics, man.
I'm just saying, man. Look, max protect. I mean, hey, you don't take it when you little bit there.
Look. I think our main coverage here for this game, if I'm taking a look at it, it was 11 personnel. We had 30 plays of that, and that one tight end was JT Sanders, who was releasing a whole lot, and you guys can attest to that because he was.
I didn't see y'all run a whole lot
long.
of 12 personnel this game.
No. 12 personnel was our second highest, but yeah, 11 personnel. That was our base package for the most part of this game. And JT Sanders was running wild, so we didn't have max coverage in.
I'm talking about like just for the season. I'm not talking about just one game.
I was talking about against you guys.
Yeah,
that's the game we're talking about.
If I may, guys, I need to get in here. Nick V with the 20. Thank you so much for the donation, Nick. He says some OU fans are comparing OU to Texas last year, but you can't compare situations because 5 to 7 losses were blown leads that ended with Texas losing by 1 score. Texas flashed last year. This OU team got spanked. Now, Nick, this is actually interesting because Jay and I talked about this. After the 2 losses to TCU and Kansas State, there were a lot of people saying, well, Nick Saban dropped, look what he did his first year. But Jay and I talked about this in a video that Nick Saban had a team that was a losing team the year before that culturally was not very good and didn't lose any game by a large metric. Every single one of them were close. This is more akin to the Mark Richt Kirby Smart transition, where Kirby inherited something that was pretty good, but didn't exactly hit the ground running. Now we know what Kirby is now, a great head coach, one of the best in the nation. And what they're building at Georgia, I mean, everybody has to take note of it, right? I mean, it is that good.
Exactly.
Now, what this means for the future of BV, we have got to give him time. Now, Nino, hey, give me my flowers here, man, because I have been consistent in this. All last year, when people, whether it be Oklahoma fans, Alabama fans, anybody would say Sark needs to be fired, I consistently have stated that is not the move. He needs 5 years at a minimum
5 years
to do his thing. The same thing needs to be said for Brent Venables. Guys, he needs his time. He's trying to run his defense that's very complex with guys that aren't in his system. He needs his time. Now, that doesn't mean we can't pick apart things we see during the game. But as far as is he needing to be fired, no, that's not the case at all. I pass it back to you guys.
PG, go ahead. You good or?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Those people that are calling for BV to be fired, that's completely asinine. And I can't believe people like that would say something like that. Here's the deal. This is the worst football I've probably ever watched from Oklahoma. Now, that's to say a lot. I'm only 25 years old, and this is the worst game I think the OU's played in 24 years. So we definitely have been living in the golden age, and I've grown up in the golden age, if I believe OU football. Yeah, we haven't won a whole lot of national championships, but we've at least been to a few, right? So I think people my age, we grew up watching Oklahoma football, and that's what we expected. So this was more of like a humbling moment for us. I thought, I believe we've kind of given it to all the other fans, but we should have seen this coming, especially with what we saw last year with Oklahoma and all these 1-score games. And because let's be honest, we're all laughing at Texas going 5-7, but this Oklahoma team wasn't short of going 5 or 7 or 6-6 last year. Like they could have lost half of their games at least, at the beginning of the season. So listen,
even midway, yeah. Caleb saved a lot of games. I mean, that Kansas game was ridiculous. If it wasn't for him being a Superman.
Hey Jay,
but PG, we didn't lose. Like
no. Let me finish. I know what you're gonna say, Nino. I know.
Hey,
I know.
What'd you say?
I know. Caleb did. The quarterback did his thing. I know you wanted Chris to hear that. So, okay, I got about 5 quick points to focus on with this game. First and most, Texas, you did your thing. Can't even lie. Everything's starting to fall into place for Sark like it needs to. Now, I was not one of those people that said Sark should be fired at all. I do agree. 5 years is what he needs. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have the best track long term. So that's the only concern I've ever had about Sark. If it looks like that he's actually be the coach he needs to be long term, Texas will be fine. A lot of good seasons, hopefully a championship in there, here or there. But I just got to see the longevity because the Washington stint had moments of niceness and it didn't last. USC had moments, it didn't last, and then he had to go be an assistant with Nick to get his things together.
AJ, I gotta just kind of push back on you on that one. He took an 0-12 team to go 9-4 by the time he left and got a job at USC. So when you say hold on though, it didn't last. It didn't last, meaning him getting a promotion to his dream job. He took an 0-12 team to go 9
I
and
get
4.
that. I
then he
get
goes
that.
to USC.
I
right?
get that.
So that's a different. I'm not going to say it didn't last. I think he upgraded out of the position.
Y'all know I like Sark, so I'm gonna sit here and listen to y'all.
And you're right. I get that. But
then he had personal demons.
Let him finish his damn point, Nino.
But the next coach walked in there a couple years later and went to the college football playoffs. That's my point. That's where Sark was supposed to go.
I get you. What?
That's where Sark was supposed to go. That was where Sark was supposed to go. Chris Peterson did that basically with his guys. It was a few years later. It wasn't instantly. It was a few years later. So Peterson, he's a monster of a coach in general. We know about him at Boise State. Oklahoma knows about him at Boise State. Period. Dude's a coach. He's good. But my point is, say the personal demons piece. That stuff lingers, especially when success hits. Why do you think Ed Ogeron lost his job? That kind of stuff starts to populate when too much success starts to come. Like I said, I hope that he continues it and keeps it going forward, and y'all don't run him out of there beforehand. So that's my one thing. Texas, y'all did a fantastic job. You've always got talent. The hardest part has always been coaching. Like the Charlie Strong era, Tom Herman era, they kept firing coordinators all the dang time. And that's instability that's not going to work. So shout out to Texas. You did your thing. Now, on Oklahoma, there's a lot of problems within the system right now. There's a lot of things going on. We were talking about this in the group chat. It looks like they're overworking the players, so they don't have the legs. And so because of Schmitty has told Venables they had to take today off because he felt like they just didn't have the legs over the last few weeks. And this is why I say that. We were talking about how the cupboard was bare when Lincoln Riley left. Now, I'm not blaming this fully on him, but the way that he runs his programs, you'll see it at USC pretty soon. I promise you will. But out of the 100, and let me pull the stat up real quick for you, out of the 106 commitments, including transfers, since 2018, here's the numbers. 34 transferred out, 9 went to the pros, 6 ran out of eligibility, 2 retired, 4 were dismissed, 1 no longer is on the team, and 29 of the remaining 50 are in the 2D.
And Jay,
we have zero depth on this team right now.
Let me piggyback that for you because I got that other stat here too from the same person.
Yeah.
2018 class, 5 players of the 23 are still at OU. Brett Walker is one of those 5. 2019 class, it should be the senior class. We have 10 guys still at OU out of 24 signed. Marcus Hicks, Corey Robertson included. 2020 class, which should be our junior class, we have 14 guys still at Oklahoma out of the 23 signed. Bryson Washington and Kendall Dennis, Trey West. 2021 class, which should be our sophomore class, we have 10 guys still at OU out of the 16 signed. And I love this point. Who signed 16 effing players in this class?
My point with all of this is what I'm saying is that as much as we like to joke and laugh about Texas, they keep kids there. They still grow and have depth. They still have talent still there. No. As long as you get a coach there. No, you don't think so?
No.
You don't think so? You don't think y'all had talent? You don't think y'all always have talent with all those top 10 classes y'all bring in?
No.
Nick has done videos about this.
No. Because you see, that's the whole narrative of these top 10 classes. And I just told you guys, they're getting a lot of top 10 classes because we had a lot of skill position guys. We weren't building the trenches. I don't care.
And I get that.
Guys, we had a team. It was a Ferrari with Walmart tires. The foundation was bad.
Fair.
The foundation was bad. Prior to Sark coming in, guys, and I've told this to Ty, and Ty actually references this video all the time. Prior to Sark coming in, all right, the 5 years prior to him being the head coach at Texas,
I love this.
Texas recruited 18 scholarship offensive linemen, the lowest in the Big 12, tied with Kansas. There's a reason why.
One more time, Nino. One more team. How many in 5 years?
18 scholarship offensive linemen. It was the lowest in the Big 12, tied with Kansas. So yes, we were getting big skill position guys, Brennan Eagles, and more. Yes, we were getting the skill position guys. But if you don't build the trenches up, it doesn't matter how talented your wide receivers and your tight ends are, and your running back are. We're lucky to have Bijan that was running behind some of those lines that had, that were part of that 18 class of linemen within a 5-year span. Because without a guy like Bijan, it's going to be horrible, folks. So yes,
thank you. Thank you for that.
The offensive line recruiting at Texas has been abysmal until Sarkisian got in here, and he pulled a hell of a line class last year, and we're finally seeing the fruits in his first year from 2 guys that are going to be starting here for at least 3 years here. Kelvin Banks is gone in 3 years. He has 2 more years here. He's going to the league. He has first round, like all over him.
So with that,
yeah, go ahead.
That's kind of the piece I'm talking about here with Oklahoma is the lacking of players will eat you alive quickly, and it's starting to see that. We've seen that now. And like I said, with Sark, he's bringing in actual players they need to. They're bringing in transfer, doing everything he needs to do to build a real team. That's what we've got to give BV time to do.
Yeah.
Like, I get everybody's upset and pissed. Complain, critique the team, do everything you want. I don't care. If anything, we got to give them time to get the actual organization put back together. So now to the game. I had one complaint this entire time about this game. And this is Levy. I blame this game on Levy. I blame this game on Levy 100% because of twofold. One, the run game, that Wildcat was hitting for a minute. But gimmicks only last so long because coaches are smart. Y'all got Gary Patterson as an analyst. He's no idiot. That stuff's going to run out. To me, the thing he should have did was number 2, either throw General Booty or Nick Evers out there and just let them fail. Just let them fail. Who cares at this point? If you're going to run Wildcat, you may as well just throw a quarterback out there and let him try. Because we know Davis Bevel, who's a third stringer at Pitt, wasn't it. And the other problem with that's where that depth comes in. They're trying to rebuild the entire quarterback room. We lost 2 5-star quarterbacks. One that was one was a Heisman favorite, and the other one was trying to trend toward the Heisman favorite when he took the other guy's job.
Yeah.
Whenever you lose talent like that and you don't recruit a quarterback every year, just like you said, Nick, about the way y'all was recruiting on the line. If we weren't recruiting quarterbacks every year. That wasn't Riley's thing. He would skip a year because he wanted to keep quarterbacks in play for so many years. You can't do that if you want to be great. Saban doesn't pass on quarterbacks. He got 2 quarterbacks in this current class?
Yep.
One of them's going to switch positions.
Yeah, Sark's the same thing. Sark's the same way. Yeah.
You can't do that if you want to be successful, especially going to the SEC.
You got to stop.
You got to have the best players, period. And so not playing a quarterback in this game and actually letting him throw, to me, is what costs this at all. That first defensive drive, it looked like Oklahoma had some juice. They were like, oh, yeah, we're feeling ourselves. We're going to figure it out. They trotted that damn offense out there, and it looked like they were just deflated afterwards. Yeah. Defense is like, oh, this ain't going to work.
Now, here's
my
question.
But the first drive, you guys moved down on the first drive, didn't you?
Yeah,
a
little
bit. That was
the
Wildcat. That was the Wildcat.
That's what I'm saying. They looked deflated after that turnover on downs.
But here's my thing. I was in the same position.
Yeah, the Wildcat was the second drive.
Yeah, I was in the same position as Jay on this, though. We are driving in the Wildcat formation. Why did we not try to put Evers or Bowens in there to try to give it a look with the Wildcat? I don't understand why they had to play Bevel so much. We knew it wasn't going to work. General Booty and Evers had to have been able to provide you something better. Even our 2 walk-ons.
Why was Bevel put out at wide receiver? Why was he at wide receiver? Why would you do that?
Okay,
why?
Okay, hold on.
Y'all got to remember this right here. Y'all are throwing out a lot of stuff, but situational football, situational. All right, let's talk about this key situation in the game. When we're running that, we're moving the ball. It's 4th and 1. Y'all are talking about this. I just said it. We're going back to our regular formations that they already know. We're running basic, simple offense. You already know exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be a slant on 3rd down to either Stoops or Braden Willis. When you're running that, you go back to your regular formation, you take out the blocking that you had, some of the blockers that you had, and you're going in there, you're trying to run a weak counter. All that you have to do is just keep running that, because we saw Braden Willis towards the middle of the game when they kept running that Wildcat, he stopped getting those 4 to 5 yards and only started to get like 2-yard gains. Well, that 2-yard gain would have got you to 4th and 1, would have probably kept your drive alive on 4th and 1s. But you're sitting there trying to get cute with it by doing a jump pass with Eric Gray. And then on the other play, you're trying to run with Eric Gray, which didn't make any sense because we all know our power back is who? Marcus Majors. Marcus Majors' ankle is still not 100%. So he's exploding.
Yeah, Majors still hurt limping.
Okay, but here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. And I've heard this for 6 weeks, and I've got to come in. Do you trust DeMarco Murray?
Yes.
Yeah, no, Chris, do you trust DeMarco Murray? then
I
at
trust
some point,
Michael
maybe we
Harris.
should start trusting that Eric Gray's that guy. Right?
He
At
is
some
that
yeah.
point,
guy.
and
Eric
he
Gray
is
was getting his
that guy.
yards. He was doing his job. He was
so,
doing his
but-
part.
But here's
They
my
didn't trust
point.
him enough.
This is my point,
Hey.
right? This is my point in saying this. I think, did y'all listen to Teddy and them's podcast?
Yes.
Yeah.
He made a great
not yet.
point. Okay, you're going to throw in the new players to what? Kill their confidence? You can actively hurt a player's development by doing something like this.
Yeah.
That was a point they made in that podcast. Guys, it's easy for us to sit here as people who don't watch the practices and be like, Nick Evers would have done better. If he would have done better, obviously
playing.
he'd have been in there. So
I'm not
But
saying
at
he would have
some
done better.
point-
To
But
your
at some
point-
point, you have to try something different because Bevel
but
wasn't.
you have to
working.
worry about, like Liam said, what's that going to do to his development? You
Well,
have
Levy-
former players
Okay, well,
saying
don't
this,
put
PG.
Evers out
Well,
there. Don't
Levy
put
said-
Evers out there.
Let's
You
be
got
honest.
three other
Today at
quarterbacks.
his press conference, Levy said, "Hey, they asked him and said, do you believe in gamers, guys who don't necessarily practice well or don't, or whatever throughout the week that can still go out there and ball out or during game day?" And he said, "No, I don't."
Well, that's crazy because he'd have never, had any kind of thoughts in a guy like Vince Young at Texas or a guy like James Brown at Texas. Those guys were not practice guys. Those guys rose
Well,
when the
Nino,
lights came on.
that's
you
the
know?
exception, not the
Yeah.
rule. So saying
We're
that's
talking
crazy.
James Brown too. Now James Brown is come on now.
But Nino,
He was a good quarterback, but he wasn't great.
Nino,
But he
but
played well.
But here's the thing. Now, when you're saying that's crazy, he feels like that. You literally just gave me two people who are the exception, not the rule. 99.9% of college coaches are going to look
That's
at
true.
you and say that exact same thing.
No,
You
that
think
is
Nick
true.
Saban's going to look at you and say, "Come on now, brother.
No,
Come on.
no.
Come
I
on.
totally
That's-
understand it, but
You can't give me one of the all-time greats and then be like, this proves it."
But
that-
getting back to what these guys are saying, this game was an indictment on Lebby because even if you lose your starting quarterback, if you are the offensive coordinator that everybody thinks you are, then you should have enough plays, enough scheme to get Bevel some plays to where you guys can run some kind of, system that mimics what you want to run. It might not be exactly what you want to run 100% of the time, but it has to be something in place that can make your team semi-successful. Exactly like what Sark did when we lost Quinn. We see how much open his offense is when Quinn Ewers is in the game. It's a whole different offense. It's
I
like
also
the
think
play-
there's a world of difference between Hudson Card, someone who is set to be a starter, and Davis Bevel.
Yeah, because Hudson
Well,
Card
yeah.
wasn't.
Hudson
Yeah,
Card
yeah.
has
He,
been in the same system, so we got to try and
But-
keep it analogous, guys. Because right
I-
now
yes,
we're
I mean,
fair.
I-
Yes, yeah.
But look, he went and got Bevel, didn't he? He
Well,
got Bevel.
Oklahoma- yeah, they
that was
went
all
and
that was. I mean, it wasn't.
But,
like
you gotta remember, we lost all of our depth.
Yeah.
We had no quarterbacks. We had
that
a walk
was more of
on.
an indictment of needing quarterback
Yeah,
depth.
Right.
I think you guys are dealing with the same situation we're dealing with right now, Alabama, with the whole Jalen Monroe situation. Because when he was having a bad game, guess what? Bama fans were saying on Twitter, "Where's Ty Simpson at?" And for the most part, there's a reason why. Again, as talented as Ty Simpson is, he's a better. I mean, and to me personally, I think he's a better. I think he's a better talent as far as arm talent wise. I think he's better than Monroe. But there's a reason why Jalen Monroe was in that game.
Yeah,
There's a reason why Bivol was in, despite his horrible performance. There's a reason why he's starting instead of Nick Evers and some of those other quarterbacks right there. Trust me, we've seen Evers in spring game, and it was not pretty as well. So I don't. It's spring game. We understand that, and we all know that there's development. We're not watching the practices in the training camp, but we did get a little bit of a teaser of Nick Evers and some of these other quarterbacks, and it just was not really working that well. So
yeah,
But that's
you know,
the thing about Nick. Nick is
what's up?
more mobile. He has the ability to tuck and run if he needs to. I think this is my problem with it is that if you don't trust any of your quarterbacks, Bevel's barely throwing the ball maybe 10, 12 times in a game. He's not throwing the ball either. So I get the thought of you can hurt somebody's confidence. General Booty played in JUCO, and he was pretty good, actually. You may as well just throw him out there and say, hey, man, or here's an idea. And I think this is the problem I saw on both sides. And this was going to be my last point anyway. Why not go back to that simple vanilla offense and defense you did the first couple weeks of the season?
My point.
With these quarterbacks. Because it
Yes.
feels like they kept just adding complexity on top of complexity on top of complexity, which is a good thing. But when you lose your quarterback, you kind of need to go backwards. Go back to vanilla.
Go vanilla.
Start that bad boy over. Say,
Go
hey, we're going to put you
vanilla.
out there. Just run base sets. Run a couple different motions here and there, but we're going to go base.
Well,
and just throw it.
But
And
see,
see
the
how
point
it
though
goes.
is-
Jay, you
Before
saw
going
the
further,
base
I do want to
sets.
get back to Nino because
Yeah.
Nino was on an interesting string, and I want to get so go ahead and continue, Nino, because you were
Yeah.
You were on
I
something.
forgot what I
wanted-
was saying, but look, go out swinging, man. I just thought like OU just had the white flag and they waved it midway through the second quarter. I'm just gonna be honest. Like they just gave up. They tried one long pass at the last play right before halftime, and it got picked off, right? But if you're gonna go, man, go out swinging, man, because look, everybody says that if you put a player in, it's gonna shake their confidence. Well, if you got players on your roster and you're not using them and you're saying, look, I don't trust you to make a throw, what's that do to his confidence too? Let him
Fair point.
let him get a play in. Maybe he doesn't play well, and maybe
good
he
point.
throws another 2 picks, but let him try to cook up something. Maybe in the last drive or something, he's able to slice and dice something that he can bring into the next game. Because, hey, look, we got to understand, if you looked at Texas film this year, we've seen where our DBs have gotten beaten pretty bad with deep, balls, not looking back at the ball. That's an opportunity, man. Hey, just throw it up. If you don't make it and it's a pick, it's a pick. It's a long punt. If it goes out of bound, all right. But there is a small opportunity that guy's not going to look back and you might get a defensive pass interference. Like, go out swinging, man. I just felt like BV just threw the white flag around the third quarter and said, hey, look, I'm done. You guys just run the ball. I'm going to let Sark do whatever the hell he wants to do on us.
I don't
Now-
think BV threw in the white flag, but I definitely think the players did. And that kind of gets to the point that I've been hitting for a while, which is this shows you the culture that Lincoln Riley was running when he was here, which is why people are still asking the question, are you guys glad that Lincoln Riley is not your head coach? Yes, because the culture you're seeing now is the culture that was laid when Lincoln Riley was here. Like, it's great that Venables wants to come in and try to lay this new culture, but it doesn't change overnight, especially with a lot of these same guys that have had this practice for 3 or 4 years.
I got
And so,
go ahead.
Yeah, I'd have to push. I'd have to.
I got to push
back
on that.
Yeah,
I got to push on that too. Hey, Chris, let me get you right quick, Chris. When Tom Herman coached Texas, and I'm not an advocate for Tom Herman, but one thing I will say about Tom Herman, his teams never quit. They were going to knock down, drag out, fight to the last whistle. Last year at Texas, we saw some quitting some players at the end of the game.
yeah.
We saw a lot of quit. Some of those players aren't on the team anymore. We saw a lot of quit last year. We saw guys running to try to get Kennedy Brooks and just ease up, saying, I ain't going to tackle him. It is what it is.
Yeah, we saw that Bo Davis rant.
Yeah. Look, Tom Herman teams never quit. That's one thing we can say. That was a tough ass team regardless. They might not have been the most skilled, might not have been the most well coached, might not have been the most developed, but one thing they were tough. That first year Sark, that team wasn't tough, y'all. And so I got to push back on the culture, piece, because it's hard for me to say that a team has a bad culture when that team over the last 5 years went 52-10, won 4 out of 5 Big 12 championships, and had a damn good offensive-minded coach who has put you in position to win and has took you to the college football playoffs twice, I think. So that's the culture. That culture is a culture of winning.
yes,
right?
but the problem is, and this is what I see when I watch the team, and this is what I mean by the culture. They get down because the defense isn't playing well, and now they don't have an offense to carry them through the game. And so they just give up. And you saw this on defense when Lincoln Riley was here. They just couldn't stop them. So it just looked like they were effortlessly not trying at this point in some of those games. And that's why you saw, especially when Kyler Murray was here, some like extremely high 50, 60 point games between the two teams, because the defense they kind of quit. They gave up because they knew they had an offense to carry them. This year, you don't have an offense yet. This year, you don't have an offense to carry you.
Right. And that's the biggest problem.
It's not quitting. It's just poor execution. You don't have the guys out there. You're running a 3-3-5 that we all agree does not work. It's poor execution.
But on top of that,
why
just like PG said.
But why
go ahead,
defensive? But why is your defensive-minded head coach trotting that defense out there?
He's not. It's Ted Roof, and we all know this is the problem. And he needs to go back to an analyst.
He's allowing it. Brent Venables is allowing it. Venables is allowing it on the field. That's one of the problems, is that we have to put it on both of them, because Ted Roof may be his boy. He's still allowing it. And this is Venables' bread and butter has always been defense. Now, the problem is The problem with that is that his defense is super complex. And the goal was to get them out there. Initially, the first 3 games, and we talked about this in the group chat, Ty, those first 3 games, we was winning off athleticism. Honestly, it was a vanilla defense, and the scheme was super simple. But it was all athleticism that won those games. But when we started going against players that are against offensive minds that are really good, we could talk noise about Colin Klein up there at Kansas State. But as soon as he got a quarterback that knows what he's doing, who's mobile, who can stop and think on his own with Adrian Martinez, he put up numbers. It shows you how bad it was in Nebraska for him. Then you go down there to TCU. The offensive coordinator is Garrett Riley, the little brother of Lincoln. They run the same offense. So you got a creative offense that's super simple, that's really just the same concepts, but the receivers just run different routes in the same sets. It looks complex for the defense, but it really isn't. But that's how good it is. So you're going against and then you got Sarkisian, who offensively is a mastermind. We saw what he did at Alabama. We saw what he did at USC, Washington, etc. The problem with him is he's trying to do all these super creative, complex defenses and trying to only use athleticism to fill those gaps. And they ran out of space. You can't do that after a while. At some point, a smart coach is going to catch on to that and say, oh, we know how to beat this. But on top of that, as bad as that offense was after they gave up the ball after the first drive and the second drive, it was all Wildcats and stuff because they realized that Bevel ain't it. You saw that defense deflated. That first touchdown that Texas scored, I didn't feel like the defense was deflated yet. I think it was like, okay, we forced him to go 12 plays, 90 yards, something we don't do very often. We actually made a team, play a offense. But then after that, it's like, good God, what the hell was that offense? Trot them right back out there real quick. Next thing you know, blasted. Then it's like, oh God, here it comes. It's over.
From like Coleman, from Trey Morrison, I mean, you saw how much they cared about it because they kept playing, even though Morrison, Morrison smacked that dude in the face, he smushed some Texas player's face. You still saw the want to out there in the attitude. The problem is that look, we're running out here in this defense because this is the best we can do with what we have right now. There are some personnel, there's some pieces of the pie that may not be here next year, or they may be looking at playing different positions as far as your defensive line, as far as your secondary as well. There are going to be some new pieces added to this. I think obviously our class, which I feel obviously is going to still stay intact. I think a lot it's going to be good. We're going to have a solid class. Okay. And then also on top of that,
it'll take 2 years.
You're going to have to go to the portal. You're going to have to go to the portal. You got to give him time. I hate to do this. I really hate to do this, but I say this right here. I bet you right now, if you call Dabo say, hey, look, everything is fine. He's going to get it together. We're benefiting off of the success that he had here. But hell, they're still running the same defense, just all the talent that he had there. And guess what? They know the system. So it's going to take him time to get his guys in here and go from there. But there are definitely going to be some changes. And if you check your group chat, you'll see something that I just sent you guys.
But I think this is, and Nino, I have a question for you because I did push back on the Lebby stance, right? Because, and a lot of people are pointing to Lebby. And no, let's get one thing understood. I'm not advocating that Lebby called a perfect game or he's absolved from blame. I think Lebby has a mountain of blame on him for Saturday. Nino, I need to hear from you though, fair or unfair? I look at the Oklahoma Sooners right now. The offensive line play has been decent. It hasn't been stellar. I can't necessarily say it's been bad. It's been there.
It's been average.
Yeah.
Serviceable.
Dylan Gabriel has missed some throws, right? The opportunities have been there. He's missed some throws. When I look at it and I look at Oklahoma in the position they are, coming in with Dylan Gabriel, for them to have a top 20 offense, I'm sitting here saying, okay, Jeff Lebby may not be perfect, but he has them in positions where if things are going consistently, they're good. I look at the other side and I look at the defense. And this is before Oklahoma versus Texas. In the 2 games prior to Oklahoma versus Texas, OU had given up 1,200 yards defense. Now, to put it in perspective, at the time, through the first 5 games, Alabama had only given up 1,000 yards in 5 games. That's 200 less yards than OU had given up. I looked at this and said, look, we can talk about Lebby all we want, and that's fair. Lebby's not calling a 3-3-5 formation on a 3rd and 1 against the best rushing team in the Big 12.
Yeah.
That's not Lebby.
That's understood. That's understood.
That's one of the most nonsensical things I've seen.
But also, we can go look at, let's say, a game like against Kent State, and the offense puts up 7 points in the first half. And that's a group of 5 team, right? So, we can kind of nitpick things that just the way that we
Sure,
want to
but
nitpick
we also
things.
saw Kent State do something to Todd Monken, who's been on a roll this year, right? So I think
And
that's a relative stat, but we can look historically, right? Like UCF, Levy's offenses were high powered, and I know we can talk about.
We can talk group of 5 now. Also,
Well,
let's
they
look
were
at
high
Ole
powered
Miss.
against Power 5 teams whenever they played.
Yeah,
them.
but
They were able to score.
But that's when you have a month to prepare for somebody, and that's your Super Bowl. You're going to be
Didn't
able
they
to
not
scheme
play
something.
a Power 5 team in the regular season, and they worked
first
them that
week.
year?
Wasn't it like Auburn like the second week or something like that?
I thought
Auburn was
it
the bowl
like week
game.
3 or
Yeah,
4.
Auburn
so,
was
yeah.
Auburn was the
Auburn
bowl
was the
game.
bowl
And
game. I
LSU was
thought
the
they
bowl
played a
game.
Power 5 in like week
Yeah,
3
but
or 4 and
it
waxed them.
was like week 1 or 2, right?
Was it
You know,
week 1 or
so
2?
Penn State.
yeah, so
Penn
you have the
State.
whole offseason to prepare for that. So those are your Super Bowls, right?
I'll
It's
look it up.
now it is how can you replicate that week to week to week? My thing with Levy too is I'm not sure if he called plays at Ole Miss or not. Some people say he did. Some people are saying he didn't. I just find it hard to believe that a guy like Lane Kiffin is not going to call plays. That would be like Sark hiring Levy and Sark not calling plays. I don't know. I'm not sure if he called plays or not when he was at Ole Miss. However, yes, I truly understand what you guys are saying about Levy. It's maybe not all on Levy, and I do agree with that. However, when you are an offensive genius, you should be able to put your players in position to pass for more than 39 yards in the game.
Well, look, as much as I like
Yeah.
Levy, I don't know that I would consider him an offensive genius. When I think of offensive genius, I think of Lane Kiffin, I think of
Sark,
Riley, I think of Sark, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't put Levy
They-
there.
yeah.
I like him. I think he's a bright young coach. I think the future for him, if he continues in the right rooms, is incredibly bright. I just think that we're oversimplifying an issue, not necessarily you, we as the pejorative, right?
Yeah.
Like
Right,
we as
right.
in everybody. We're oversimplifying an issue saying Levy didn't do this. And someone in the chat said, Lone Wolf said, Levy not coming out with any adjustments. You're right. And that's inexcusable. I look at this and I'm sitting here like, man, Levy's getting a lot of heat right now. And that defense isn't the top 110 defense in the nation right now.
No,
That's-
and you're right.
Which-
And you're fair with that, but at the same time, that defense, and this is the thing I've been saying from the beginning of the season. One of the biggest problems we have with this offense is that it's so boom or bust. Oklahoma has a time of possession of 25, like 22, which is like 120th in the country. It's the lowest. Right above them is my other team, the Tennessee Volunteers. But you know what the difference is? Tennessee scores a lot.
Well, that's
so
Levy's
every
offense
time
relies on big plays and
every
stacking
time they get
momentum.
those quick before this game, Oklahoma had 2 possessions that were over 4 minutes. That was against UTEP, and they were up 21 points at that point. 4 minutes and like 5 minutes. Besides that, every possession was under 4 minutes, and it was more so in the 2 minute and 50-second range. So it was like this. Every time you look up, they get a whole bunch of yards, turnover on downs, and the defense is right back on the field. So they never, and that's where that depth comes in. They never got a chance to rest.
Tennessee
Jay.
was doing that last year. Tennessee
But
was
hey,
doing that last
yeah,
year. despite
yeah.
losing 30 scholarship players.
Yeah, but hey, Jay, one thing that I do want to say is me and Steven brought this up, to Chris and Seth, is how is that Levy offense going to marry up with a BV defense? Because Levy's offense is one that scores so quick, and you're going to continuously get your defensive side of the field tired. Sark had the same problem last year. And so
you remember I asked you, and when you asked me what worries I had for Oklahoma in that stream, I told you that the marriage, much akin to like Homer told us that time with Sark and PK, that was my one worry, was that one is bend but don't break, one is quick score.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be that bad though, like we've seen in the Riley era.
Well,
I think
hold on, 'cause
Levy is
Nino's
going to
about
have
to
a
hit you
little
with
bit more.
something.
Yeah, give me that, Nino.
So that's one thing that I like what Sark has done this year, is that last year was a quick fire offense. It was boom, 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 boom.
Yep.
Score as fast as you can, get as many points as you can. This year, we're not really going for the gusto every play anymore. Like even against OU, we ran the most basic, most vanilla offense that we could run. That was a base offense. There was nothing special about the offense. And we didn't, it's like we tried a couple deep passes, but Sark was like, you know what? I'm just gonna slice and dice you. I'm gonna get 7 yards here, 8 yards here, 7 yards here. I don't need to get a 50-yard pass. It'd be nice to have it, but I don't need it. I think the longest play we had in that game was 38 yards. And that was a pass to Rojo.
That was it.
And
it was a Rojo run. It was a Rojo run. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the longest play in that game. Sark has learned, I think, this year how to play the complementary football with the defensive side of the ball. And yes, he will take those deep plays if he can. But one thing that he is doing is he is slicing and dicing. He did that very well against OU, and it was able to actually have our defense rested so that, our line could actually move y'all's line, and it did wonders for our team. So, Lebby has to figure out how to play that complementary football.
He's got to slow down. And what it is that, and the question that you asked about how does that work in complementing with each other is when you can go 4 deep. That's really when it works. That was how Clemson's had all these defensive linemen go to the league. Alabama, so many just levels upon levels of players that can come in and actually contribute immediately. That's going to take some classes. It's going to take him at least 2 classes to get enough bodies that can even comprehend what he's trying to do, and then bringing in those transfers and stuff. Because I remember hearing that there were a lot of Clemson players that wanted to follow BV to come down here, and he refused to take them. Now, that's like the nicest thing I've ever heard in my life, but it's like, bro,
crazy.
If you would have had them with defense would look different. Seriously. Why would you? But I get it. You don't want to poach. I get that. But at the same time,
this is college football. You getting a check right now. You building your team. If your guys want to come, your guys come. It's not poaching if they want to come.
You can get fired if you don't do it eventually.
This was my thing about BV, and I've said this from the start. A lot of people gave Sark a lot of crap when he came to Texas about him not being a winning head coach, even though he has proven that he has won in college football. Might not have been at the highest level, but he has won. BV's never been a head coach, folks. He's learning on the job. He's
being a CEO. And I think that's where my issue has come with him.
No, it's the truth.
Story is,
he hasn't been
right here. We lost this game. It was a terrible loss. Texas fans, y'all are still 4-2. Y'all are still on the same trajectory that y'all were last year.
We're not even talking about the game now. We're not even talking about
what it is.
We're talking about the coaching staff now.
You will be better. We don't have to sit here and listen to Texas fans tell us about how we need to improve. We've been here before.
We are off. We are off for the game in Dallas. We're talking about OU and Texas as a whole, and we're comparing them. This is a good dialogue between 2 rivals. The thing is, this is one thing that I've always said is he hasn't been the man at a team, and it's going to take him time to kind of get settled into that seat. Right. I mean, we've seen in press conferences, some of the comments he's made have not been the best of comments. That means he doesn't have somebody writing what he's supposed to say. Most teams have a guy who drafts.
That means absolutely not a damn thing. All the stuff that you're saying, that's just tea leaves from Texas.
Well, here's the thing.
It's going to be all right.
It's not tea leaves.
Will be all right.
It is not tea leaves.
How the season finishes, and then we'll go from there.
It's about how you run a team.
Beat the dead horse over the head and say,
"Why are you so defensive today, Chris?"
I'm just saying because
Jay's made the same point. Don't be defensive at me,
man. Come on, man.
Chris, your two guys that are representing Oklahoma are saying the same points. Don't be so defensive. Don't be so defensive.
What PG said before is kind of where I've been with the BV thing. Is the Ted Roof piece at defensive coordinator. Ted Roof's had 6 jobs in 6 years, and none of those jobs looked good before he came here. BV may need to go ahead and pull the head coach, defensive coordinator job, and truly be the CEO on his one side of the ball, and just let Lebby and them figure that bad boy on the other side. Or he may need to add a offensive analyst. Go call Scott Frost. Honestly, call Tom Herman and just say, hey, can you come just be here and be an analyst with this dude and just be there and let me focus on fixing my side of the ball that's important? Because irregardless, we can blame Ted Roof all we want. This is Brent Venables' defense. And he needs to go in there and just take it over. Now, the overworking piece, if Schmitty is really telling him, hey, we need to give these guys a break because y'all been going 110 for too long. Of all people, he's saying that. You're going too hard, especially when you can't go too deep. We barely have enough depth for that.
That's a problem.
And so that's a problem. He's overexhausting them, and it gets it.
That's
was our
probably
problem
been the
last year.
most
We
disappointing.
voted in the
Right.
fourth
It's
quarter.
because you're trying to compensate. You're trying to
Yeah.
compensate for how bad things were over the last couple of years. Yeah, we're gonna get these players tough and get them to the point. No.
That was our
Slow
problem
down.
last year.
Slow
You guys
down.
saw last year. We folded
Yeah.
in the fourth quarter. It's
Just
like we get the
exhausted. Just
leads,
exhausted.
They're
Gassed.
exhausted. We folded in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just a matter. Once these guys get their legs underneath them, BV learns how to be a head coach. Everything's gonna work out. I even
He'll get
told
it.
Chris this before. I said, I thought, look, Oklahoma doesn't hire wrong. And Chris has heard me say this. I've said this on the record.
Yeah.
Oklahoma does not hire wrong. They make good hires that end up being great coaches. I actually like getting Levy there. I thought, and I told Chris this before. That's why I don't know why he's so defensive today. I said, it's like the football gods shined on you guys when you got Levy and he was able to go and get his boy DG. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen
It doesn't.
at a lot of places. And so he's able to go get a guy to be able to run his system exactly how he wants it to be ran. That does not happen. So when he implements that system, the play caller that is at Oklahoma now knows that offense in and out. He's ran it and been successful in it. So yes, I thought everything was set up perfect. I think it is still going to be a good team eventually. But like I said before, it's just BV's never been a head coach. There's things he's going to have to learn when he has to run the complete show. You know, it's one thing to run the defense and only have to worry about the defense, and Dabo take care of the press conferences, and Dabo take care of all the radio shows, and Dabo take care of signing autographs here and doing this and going to all these speaking engagements. But it's one thing when you have to go do it yourself and be Dabo and be you also on the defensive side of the ball. It's just going to take time. It's just a maturation process of a coach. You know, and he's not a coach; he's a CEO.
I think it's more of just a personnel thing.
Exactly.
I think we got to just figure it out with what we have right now. Going into the season, I thought that I overestimated this team. I thought we'd definitely be better because the talent that we have on this team is good talent, but it's just not all clicking right now.
They're being too
that's
complex.
With what you're saying about him having to make that transition as a coach, I don't think he's overwhelmed or anything. I just think it's the fact of the matter is that look, when he looked at Joe C and the President Harris, or however you say his name, when he looked them in the eye and shook their hand and said, "Hey, give me 3 years and I will build you a championship team." I think we probably should have took note of that then. But going to your point, with the coaching hires that OU has made, not too many. With the coaching hires that they've made, you just felt like, man, this would be another seamless transition. You'd be able to do this, you'd be able to do that right off the bat. It just hasn't happened.
Well, you can't do that if you have no players. That's the thing about it. And that's kind of why I pointed that out from the beginning.
That's what I'm saying.
Just like Nino said about Texas, their biggest problem was they didn't have O linemen and D linemen in the recruiting down the pipeline for when the new coaches came in. You can't do anything without those players. And when I look back at how many players we don't have, if you ain't got the bodies, irregardless of how good your players are, if you're running offenses that require a lot of bodies, but you're not going to be very well if you ain't got them.
True, and also, this is where I had to push back on Chris and Seth too. When we were kind of talking about this for the whole year, is I don't understand how OU fans felt that this was going to be seamless when you just lost the best play caller in college football and a transcendent quarterback. That's one. I didn't think it was going to be
Mario
seamless.
Williams,
huh?
I said you lost Jaden Hazelwood, Mario Williams. I mean, you lost.
You guys lost a lot.
You lost a bunch of players to the NFL draft, which a lot of those players were responsible for.
40 players left.
2020.
40 players left last year from last season's team.
That was my only thing. Was I was just thinking, God, you guys are kind of cocky and arrogant on this because. I understand that you guys didn't like the way that Lincoln left, but don't get it misconstrued that Lincoln wasn't that dude.
Well, and here's a question I have, Nino, because whenever I looked at this, I did my video. We can go back and watch it. Jonathan Lewis and I did our Oklahoma preview for the season. And I said, look, I don't know what the Big 12 is going to be. Out of all conferences, the Big 12 I have the biggest question on because there's a possibility what we're seeing it could happen where there's a lot of good teams. I thought there was an equal possibility that the chaos could absolutely swallow the entirety of the conference and there would be a lot of good teams, but the record might not reflect it whenever you were to look. So whenever I looked at this, I had Oklahoma losing 3 or 4 games in the regular season.
Yeah. I said 8-4.
Would you say 8-4?
Yeah, that's what I said, 8-4.
Okay, so we
originally.
We were very close then. All right. I think I was more optimistic than you. I had 3 games, 4 being something that I thought was a possibility, not very likely, but I thought 3. So yeah, I didn't know that it would be seamless, quote unquote, but I did think that whenever they had so much success in the transfer portal, they would be able to hit the ground running a bit easier than they did, because case in point, and this was wrong, obviously, hindsight being Mel Tucker with Michigan State having so much success in the transfer portal, able to hit the ground running with some level of success.
Yeah.
I thought we'd see something a bit closer to that.
Yeah.
But Mel Tucker took like
20 transfers.
20.
No doubt, no doubt.
I think like what, 4 or 5, something like that.
No, y'all took in a lot.
We took 13 transfers.
Y'all took
and
13.
Yeah, so we took 13 transfers and 22 freshmen. So that's the important thing to note here is we've talked about so much about how we don't have the depth, and it's 100% true. You bring in 22 freshmen in this class, and I would say 80% of the freshmen haven't seen the field. We're redshirting Kobe McKenzie and Kip Lewis at a linebacker position that is extremely thin right now. And quite honestly, Jaren Kanak ain't playing that much, and he really should be playing a lot more. You saw it in the Texas game when he came in there and played at the very end of the game. It kind of made a little bit of a difference. Now, whether you want to say that was Texas just ready to go home or not, I don't know. But there's quite a few freshmen here that are not playing. And so that takes out a lot of your team right there. And so, yeah, we just don't have the depth, and they're just, I don't.
But that's
I don't know
every school, though. I mean, that's every school in their freshmen. We had 26 freshmen.
Yeah, but you have guys that are more experienced, right? If we wouldn't have brought in,
you got guys a year in.
Yeah,
you got guys that are a year into the actual system, so it's not like you. This is Sark's first year, and he's got all these freshmen waiting in the wings. I think that's the thing with BV too, like PG said. There's a lot of freshmen that's waiting in the wing to understand the defense.
Yeah.
So next year they can truly contribute. So I think that class with this 26 to 30 person class coming in will make a world of difference going into next season.
We all tend to forget sometimes, because just going back to the transfer portal comment, like the transfer portal is a gamble. There are some teams that it will just hit, and there are some teams that won't hit. Miami's a team that will get 14, 15 guys, and 3 of them will be off to the 3 of them will be off to the NFL. But guess what? They'll still end up with being with a negative record, or maybe 6-6 or 7-6, and it's just disappointment. Sometimes you'll have a Mel Tucker situation, Michigan State. Right now, LSU had one of the best transfer portal type of rankings in the country. And even though they're 4-2 right now, LSU fans are disappointed about this.
It's not pretty ball.
And a lot of those players, a lot of those players are underperforming over there. But then again, you can have a team like Ole Miss that's undefeated right now, because of the transfer portal. So it's a gamble. It's kind of 50-50.
It's a gamble.
Sometimes won't bank.
There's a reason. There's a reason. Usually there's a reason why some of those guys are in the transfer portal, and people need to take heed to that. You know what I'm saying? There's a reason, right? So
everybody can get Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, we've gotten lucky with getting like a Ryan Watts. Ryan Watts has been outstanding for us from the portal. Also Tucker Dorsey's been great too. Nair, I think, was going to be our best guy from the portal, but he ended up getting hurt. And then we got Billingsley as well, who hasn't played in 6 games. So, we've had some pretty good guys here from the portal this year, but yeah, it's definitely a gamble. It's definitely a gamble.
It's a pendulum. That's why I've always referred to the transfer portal as a pendulum. It's going to cut both ways. You're going to lose good players. You're going to get good players. You're going to miss on some guys.
Yeah.
You're going to lose some guys you didn't think were going to hit for you. They're going to go to another team, and you're going to sit there wishing they were still on your team. That's just going to be the nature of the transfer portal. I think one of the most unfortunate injuries we've seen in the transfer portal has been Isaiah Nayor, unfortunately, because I was so excited.
I was ready to see him.
Texas can get him next year too, right? Because he can. Technically, Texas could have him 2 more years, because he's going to get a medical red shirt and get the COVID year. So
I was hoping that Tennessee would have gotten him, but I saw how y'all swooped him up.
Man,
dang it.
Hey, he would have been perfect in this offense this year, and just having him opposite of X would have been great, because X is seeing double coverage pretty much every play. So we need somebody who who can't take that off of him. But Jordan Whittington's been doing good, and he had a pretty good game last game too.
It could be a Jai Hall, man, but I don't know. What's going on with him?
He had his few little problems, but it is what it is. You guys know how Sark is, though. Sark likes to play 3 or 4 wide receivers the entire game. He doesn't do a lot of substitutions when it comes to his skill players. So he's been playing Whittington, he's been playing X-Man, and he's been playing Casey Kane. Those have been his 3 guys playing. And then, of course, at the tailback, it's just been Bijan and Roshan with a little bit of Keelan sprinkled in, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, rushing attack is dangerous. Now, guys, I've kept y'all here for an hour and 30 minutes. There's NFL on. It is a Monday evening. We all have to get back to what we do. So I want to give everybody an opportunity to say their closing statements. I think we just go right down the line with PG, Nino, Chris, Jance, and then Jay. Let the people know where they can find your content. Let them know what your plans are for this week, and then your closing thoughts.
Yeah, so people, listen, the OU game, this was a wake-up game for the staff. 49-0. I mean, a lot of people were calling for heads. I think this is a wake-up game. You're going to get to see the OU team. They're going to get a little bit of rest this week. They're going to go into Kansas. It's going to be at home. Crowd's going to be electric. They'll win that game. They'll have a week off, and you kind of get to reset. Listen, OU might lose one more game, or they might just go 10-3 at the end of a bowl game. You never know. But regardless how it is, you can't go dog, the recruits. You can't go dog the players, because at the end of the day, recruits get to see the Twitter. They see it. And I'm going to be honest, if I was a recruit and I see some of the OU fans and the way they act towards the players, I don't want to come here, because I don't want to play for fans that act like that. So come on, have a little bit of decency. Just wait it out. Listen, we can have one bad year out of like 25. It's okay. If you have one bad year every 25, almost any program will take that. So additionally, Texas is just going to be really good. They've got a good recruiting class. Sark's got it going together. So that's what I think about that. But you guys can find me on YouTube, Google, Spotify, or Apple at The PG Show. Or you guys can find me on Twitter, The PG Show _. We got a lot of good interviews, and we'd love to have you guys come check it out.
Awesome.
All right, folks. Hey, man, it's Nick Battle, a.k.a. Nino's Corner. Find me at Nino's Corner on YouTube, Twitter, anywhere, man, Instagram, everywhere. So also, Spotify as well. Yeah, when it comes to Texas fans, one game at a time. Don't get big-headed, right? Don't get big-headed.
Big opponent this weekend, actually.
No,
it is. Huh?
ISU's top 15 defense.
No, hey, I always
That's
say
maturity.
that.
That's maturity.
No. Chris, I'm the most sane person when we talk between me, Yusef, and Steven. So,
he's just jigging at you. You can't be falling for it.
Texas fans, one game at a time. We got Iowa State this week. We are a team that is not good enough yet to look ahead at anything. We got to take this week by week. I think Iowa State is the best defense in the Big 12 right now.
Top 15 defense, yep.
Yeah, so, hey.
No offense.
One game at a time. And Quinn, I trust.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen.
Hey, this would normally be the game that Texas would go lose after a big win, an emotional win. So if Texas can go out there and win this game, it's a good start in the right direction.
Great win.
Exactly.
Great win.
Man, look, I know everybody's going to try to take their hits and all the rest of that stuff. All the Texas fans, including Nick and Nino, they went for everything except for my eyes. They went for my neck first, right?
Hey,
but I'm still bullish on this team. I still think there's a lot of talents, a lot of games to play. Man, you just want to see improvement week to week, man. You just want to see improvement week to week. And that's all that we can ask for right now. Effort, max effort, and just buy into what's going on. And hopefully the play calling gets better and all the rest of that. We can go down the line, but at the same time, there's still a bunch of games to be played. Let's get to a bowl game. Let's do what we got to do. Let's be one of the hottest teams to end this year. I mean, I think that's a starting point right now. Still believe in BV. Everybody that I've talked to, a lot of people, just random people I've seen at other places, hell, Whole Foods of all places. People are still saying, man, I'm sold out to them. Like, I love BV. We're going to be fine. We're going to get it. It's just growing pains right now. But with that being said, you guys can find us at the Horns Down Podcast, Spotify, Google, or Apple Podcasts. You can find us on YouTube as well. Shout out to my guy at Seth Oliveris. He will be back, and we will be back on with Nick and Steven soon, and we will continue to educate them about good football, not mediocrity for the last 13 years. That's all I have to say.
Hey, Chris. Hey, man, everybody loved Charlie Strong too. Go ahead.
Yeah, Chris. No, Oklahoma is just not that good of a team. It's maybe 5-7, 6-6 potentially. I'm thinking, which is not. If you really think about it, it's not that bad actually, especially with the mess that you guys are going through right now. But it's like the Big 12 is really good this year. It's a lot better this year.
Tough, man.
Really good.
I mean,
yeah.
Tough conference.
Kansas with their backup quarterback still should have won that game against TCU. They never would have got screwed on that. It should have been a holding call, but again, we can talk about that later. But no, you can find me at Jant Sports on YouTube, Jant716 on Twitter. Also follow me on Buffalo Fanbase. We got our own things going on over there, recapping that huge Bills win, and and of course on top of the AFC East division, the Patriots right now on the bottom still. So we really appreciate that. Thank you, Chris, for that. But no, yeah, you guys can find me all the way over there, man. And like I said, man, check me out over there on Sundays.
Well, I guess I'll close it out. My final statement is, Nino, I really do appreciate what you said, because that was the one thing I've told a few Texas fans that I know. Just don't say you're back. Because every time you say you're back, after those good 10-3 seasons, 11-2s, everything goes down. A booster just ruins it. Just like one game at a time. Enjoy the moment here. Don't run Sark out. I'm glad that y'all kept them around. I like the rivalry better when Texas is good, because it makes Oklahoma look better when they beat them. So it's always better for Texas to have one loss every season, and that's just against Oklahoma. Outside of that, I don't care. We can keep it there. But no, seriously, I like that. I want Texas to be good, because it's so much more funner going down to the River Rivalry shootout and Texas being good. So with that, Jay Smith, Unfair Sports. Follow us on YouTube at Unfair Sports. You can follow me on Twitter, and you can find the podcast wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to. Ty, once again, thanks for putting this together. This was always a blast. Great banter, great conversation, and great jabs at those Texas fans because they won.
Absolutely, guys. This was a
I
ton
didn't
of fun.
jab you guys. I didn't
No,
jab
Not
you.
you.
Guys.
Before I let y'all out of here, Nino, Friday, I'd love to have you on for the preview stream, previewing all the games for Week 7. Get your thoughts on some Big 12 action, but get your preview on that Texas game. Would you be interested in that?
Oh, most definitely, man. Oh, you know what I'm going to talk about, though, Ty? I'm going to talk about, just how much of an issue JT Sanders is going to be against Iowa State. Yeah, I'm going to say that.
I tried to tell him. You heard me. Hey, you heard me. You heard me. I tried to tell him.
He's still not an issue to me. He's still not an issue to me.
He should be a big issue.
That was more mullet boy. That was more mullet boy than anything. Also, before I get out of here, go War Eagle. That's all I have to say.
War Eagle.
You're not going to go Auburn by 40?
What are they doing right now?
Huh?
What are they doing?
What are they doing?
Exactly. What are they doing right now?
That's an upset.
They're about to hire Matt Rule.
They are.
Chat right now. The whole chat is now getting to see what our behind the scenes usually looks like the second we hit in broadcast and we're all in here going at each other, trading jet. This is what it looks like when y'all aren't here. So there, now you get your in-depth look. Guys, thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to see y'all Friday. Thank you for everybody in the chat. Be sure to go follow all these guys. They all do great content. PG, up and comer in the YouTube sphere, doing great stuff, putting together great interviews, all that. Nino, absolutely ace content creator for the Texas Longhorns. And guys, the Texas Longhorns, I got to admit, they got a bunch of great content creators. Texas Homer's phenomenal. Lando's phenomenal. Nash is phenomenal. And that goes without saying, Fanatics perspective, right? I mean, that's kind of an OG to it. And Nino fits in like a glove right there. I reference his videos all the time. Chris is a troll, but he's our troll. We love him, right? Horns Down podcast is a ton of fun. Chris, love having you on here. Jance, you keep me sane, man, because we're ranting on Bill O'Brien together. And guys, Jay with Unfair Sports, got to go check out his channel. Thank you all for being in here. We'll see you next time. Y'all take it easy. That's it.
Peace.
Welcome.
Now we got to wait for this long thing to end the broadcast.